And for more, the president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, Jacob Hornberger, is talking to us all the way from Virginia, all the way, kind of close, right, Jacob? One of the things that was so fascinating to me when I was doing this piece and doing all my research was that I couldn't get any concrete answers. No one, not even the Pentagon, investigative journalists, could tell me for sure how many bases and military installations we have all around the world. How could this be?
Well, it's part of the secrecy that goes with empire. You know, they call it a Department of Defense, but we all know that's just a charade. It's like the emperor has no clothes. The United States is under no threat of an invasion. There's nothing to defend against. This is really a Department of Empire and War. And the bases range from 700 to 1,000. That's what the estimates are. But you're right. We don't know the exact number. The American people are not permitted to know the exact number. We know that they're in about 130 countries. So imagine, here you have this extensive military empire with hundreds of bases all over the world. Combine that with the foreign aid that goes to brutal dictatorships like the Mubarak regime or the regime in Tunisia, and you have all the recipe for the anger and hatred that then generates the terrorist blowback that then is used to take away our freedoms here at home.
Well, speaking of that, and I do want to keep this current and mention that Hamid Karzai, Afghan President Hamid Karzai, has admitted that he was in talks with the United States to establish permanent military bases in Afghanistan. He said, quote, that the permanent U.S. military presence would bring economic prosperity and an end to violence. So here we are, footing the bill for economic prosperity in Afghanistan. But what about economic prosperity here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. I mean, this is what people tend to forget is that the military is just like a part of the government. It doesn't have free money. In order to fund this enormous military empire, you got to take the money from the American taxpayer. Families are having trouble making ends meet. They're having trouble sending their kids to college. They can't pay their health care costs. April 15th is coming up, income tax day, and all to fund what? This dominant military role around the world that's really just creating nothing but problems for us.
And, of course, this all comes at a time when the Obama administration is trying to make cuts, trying to reduce the deficit. I mean, some of these places have golf courses, ski lodges. Wouldn't it make sense to sort of start cutting here?
Oh, of course. I mean, they have some of the nicest resorts in the military that you can imagine. And you've got generals and admirals flying around in private jets anywhere they want in the world. I mean, it's a high lifestyle. And it's a very expensive lifestyle. It's a huge burden. And this nonsense that, oh, well, the Department of Defense can't be put on the cutting board is just absolutely ridiculous. The country is going broke. We're spending more, $1.5 trillion more than what the government's bringing in. The national debt's soaring. And a large part of this is the U.S. military and the military-industrial complex. That's what this is all about, power and money.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, because obviously, like you said, if you ask military folks why have all these bases, they obviously say this is to protect the American people. But when we think about countries like Japan, Italy, Germany, countries who are considered friends and allies of the United States, what is the justification there?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, Cold War is over. That was their justification for keeping the troops in Germany. You know, oh, we got to be part of NATO, the Soviet threat. You know, their worst nightmare, Dina, was when the Soviet Empire expired in 1989 because they had used this overinflated communist threat for so many years to justify ever-increasing military budgets. When the Soviet Empire dismantled, they went into panic mode, like, oh, well, maybe we can help with the drug war. Well, what they did was they went into the Middle East for 10 years and stirred up hornets' nests. They got 9/11, and of course, that's the latest justification for the ever-increasing military expenditures, the war on terrorism, which is just a substitute for the communist threat.
And, of course, the other issue here is that it often breeds anti-American sentiment. I mean, we saw that in Okinawa. We saw it in Colombia. This is not exactly something that we want to see happen.
Oh, of course. I mean, I would say maybe always generates this type of anti-American hatred and anger, except for the people that are, of course, are benefiting from the military-industrial complex, all the contracts and so forth. But, I mean, we see this. We see it in Okinawa. People are furious at the United States. And, again, when you combine that with the foreign aid that supports these dictatorships, you've got this combination empire consisting of bases. You've got the support of the dictatorships, the torture agreements that the U.S. makes with many of these dictatorships, This is the recipe for an absolute disaster as far as the American people are concerned.
So a lot of issues here and a lot of taxpayer money going to maintaining these bases. As always, Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation. Always good to have your analysis, Jacob. We'll have you on again soon, okay?
Thank you, Dina. Nice to be here.